A big part of the Beyond the Color project is that in the process of waiting for Rook to be old enough to color and training him, I also want to not only introduce myself and have viewers get to know me, but I want viewers to know and understand how and why the Beyond the Color project even became a thought in my mind. So in 2024, I had just started the hunt for a location in which I was going to move the salon into. I had signed the lease. I remember it was a really rainy day, but I had signed the lease for this new salon. A month later, we had a light snow and I canceled all the appointments and I told the staff not to come in, but um, I was driving on my way to the salon to check on it, and I was rear-ended at a stoplight. And for me, anytime I get into a car accident, I'm like, oh, I'm fine, everything's fine. But that car accident, it was February 13th. It was the day before Valentine's Day. That car accident really did a lot of damage on my lower back. And at this point, I just am chronically in lower back pain. I have a standing appointment with my chiropractor once a week. But those two things, it was January, February, March was quiet. I was really dealing with some of the issues from the car accident. And then in April is really where everything kicked off. Um, it was a regular morning. And in my backyard, I live right next to my aunt. Her and I share a backyard. She has her dogs, I have my dogs, and they all share a backyard. But I go over and have coffee with her every morning. That's my daily routine. And I was coming out of the back door, her back door, with my cup of coffee and calling the dogs to get them ready to leave. And my Doberman was laid out in the backyard, and that was the first time she had a heart attack. I remember I started screaming for my aunt, and I can laugh about it now because I'm sure it looked funny being a viewer to that, but she just Chinese fire drilled around me, running in laps and asking me what she needs to do. And all I remember is I threw my coffee cup. I don't even remember. I think I had slippers on, and I scooped my Doberman up, and I'm screaming at my aunt to go get my car keys. And I remember pinning my back against the gate with her in my arms so I can lever the gate open, and I hit my head so hard on the pole. And it's little memories, right? But I hit my head so hard on the pole, I think I saw, stars for a minute, but I just kept going. And eventually, I had to be doing 85 down the road to get her to the emergency room. They were trying to figure it out, but inevitably what the doctor told me is that she had a heart attack. And I went back and she was all hooked up. That was hard. That was really hard. But the doctor said I had to make a decision. What did I want to do? And at the time, she was only 6 and a half. Um, of course, I was going to save her. I was going to do everything I could. So over the course of 6 months, and there was so much that happened in between there. But that very first time, I remember being in the emergency room and the doctor's just asking me what I need to do. And I'm remember looking at my aunt, and I can't imagine what I looked like because there was such fear in me that it had to be extremely obvious that I didn't know it was one of the first times in my life that I didn't have an answer and I didn't know what to do. But you have to make a decision. So over the course of 6 months, my Doberman's name was Dahlia. I was a criminal justice major in college, so her name was Madame Black Dahlia. She was named after the famous murder. And over the course of 6 months, it was did she have her medication at this time? Then she had a second round of medication, a third round of medication, checking on her. She had lost bladder control. I don't know. I think that just came with it, but I had brand new carpets in my house, and she just had no control over her bladder. Even when she was in bed with me, she slept between my legs, and I remember there was a few times that I would wake up and both of us are just completely covered in pee. But what are you gonna do? That was my baby. She was just so happy. She was still so happy, and she would be running around the backyard, and There was a few times I had to slow her down, but she was obviously declining, like, obviously declining, and this was going on for 6 months. Um, and I went away to Italy. I remember in the beginning of September, I went away to Italy, and I was on the trip with my boyfriend, and, I remember it was our last day in Italy, and he kept since it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he kept checking his phone, and his watch kept going off, and I was like, "That's weird, none of my business." Um, but eventually I saw that it was my aunt who had been texting him, and I said, "What's going on? Why is she bothering you?" And, it turned out that my Doberman was having seizures, and it was our very last day of the trip. But she was having seizures, and they didn't know she was gonna make it while I was gone, and I had already felt guilty about going on the trip. I already felt guilty about going on the trip. Um, and I remember I'm standing in the middle of Rome, and I just thought to myself, like, none of this matters. Why am I here? None of this matters. Because I would have never forgave myself if she passed while I was gone. I would have never forgave myself. Um, and at that point, I decided let's just go to the airport. And I remember being on the phone with the emergency doctor, and they want to do scans, and they think that she has a brain tumor now, and they think she has the. I said, just keep her alive until I get home. I said, I think I had like a 15-hour flight. I don't even know. I said, just keep her alive until I get home. So I get home, and she was tired. I can tell she was tired. But the weirdest thing is that she popped up the next day. Like it was nothing. I can't even remember what day of the week it was. It was a normal morning. I got up to do my normal routine, I threw the sheets in the wash. I put her outside by herself for the first time. She wasn't by herself. She was with my other dogs, and my aunt's dogs were outside. But it was the first time she had gone outside without me. So I had just plugged in the carpet cleaner, and I heard my aunt scream, and it's one of those screams that you'd never forget. It's like when I can't like when mothers lose their children, like that blood curdling scream. I'll never forget that scream. And I just dropped everything, and she was just at the bottom of my steps, and she was gone. Like, don't get me wrong, I found it the first time she had her heart attack, but she waited until I wasn't there. Like I know that she waited until I wasn't there because I would have never given up on her. And she knew that. Um, but I picked her up, and I brought her inside. I put her in her bed, and I knew inevitably that like that moment was coming, right? You never think it's going to be you never think it's going to be tomorrow. You never think the moment's coming, but at some point it's coming. You have to be realistic, at some point it's coming. So, from past experience of working at vets offices, I had bought her very own body bag. And so while I had her laying in her bed, I decorated her body bag. So as I'm decorating her body bag, I also called a local crematorium, and it was a Tuesday. And so I called them, and they said, actually, today is one of the days that we do actually cremate our pets or animals. I remember decorating her bag. I remember putting her in her bag. And it was such a, you know what? It was such a beautiful moment because it was almost ceremonial. And the one person who came to came with me to pick her up the day that I picked her up as a puppy was also the same person that was there the day that I had to let her go. But it was beautiful. It really was beautiful. And I dropped her off, and I think it was like 2 or 3 days later I went and picked her up, and this 85-pound dog was in this tiny little box. Actually, it wasn't tiny. Excuse me. At the time, I thought it was a small box, but now compared to, which I'll get into, now compared to my Pomeranian, that was a big box. um, But in that 6 months of taking care of her, I didn't realize the how disassociated I was, um, because I was in such a mindset, "I just need to get this done, I need to wake up at 5 AM and take care of her, I need to clean this, I need to get her ready, then I have to go to work." There's so much that was going on. I had chronic back pain, taking care of my Doberman, moved the salon from my 600 square foot to then I don't even know how many square foot this is, but a huge, massive undertaking move. The money I was spending on doing this new salon and putting into this new salon, everything, it was so much. Like I just talked about her passing, but there was so much going on in that process. Capone I got when I was in college, and I really wanted a dog, and so I snuck him in my dorm rooms, and I even snuck him when I lived on an on-campus apartment. And all of my roommates, they all helped in and chipped in that if they were doing a room check, he would slip right in a backpack, and we would hide him. Capone went everywhere with me. So I had Capone since I was 20, 22. It was Mother's Day weekend. I'm one of 6 kids, so I have 2 sisters. So one of my sisters was having a baby, and then me and my other sister were planning and putting together the baby shower. And so we left Friday. Me, my aunt, and my boyfriend left Friday, and we drove down. We probably had to leave at like 6 or 7 a.m. And we were driving down to Virginia. Or I'm sorry, we were driving down to North Carolina, and we stopped in Virginia. We stopped in Virginia to get gas and go to the bathroom, and everyone was fine. I had Capone. My aunt had her dog, 2 dogs. Everyone was good. And about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, we stopped again because I actually needed a phone charger, was the reason why we stopped. My phone charger wasn't working. And we stopped at a little rinky dink gas station, and I let him out to go pee again. And when I took him out of his bag, he just collapsed. Capone just collapsed. And my aunt was coming out of the gas station, and I start screaming for her. And I knew obviously something was. He completely. I just picked him up, put him down, and he just right over. Um, so we drove. This was in Virginia, and I had quick Googled the nearest emergency room, and the nearest emergency room was in Raleigh, North Carolina, but it was kind of out of the way. But we drove an hour further south to get him to the emergency room, and I just remember the whole time I was in the back seat with him, and I was just holding him and talking to him. And I thought because he was in the back seat and he was in his bag, and now when I say in his bag, he had a fancy purse that was his. It had no top to it, but he fell asleep in it, and I thought that maybe he had just overheated, and because he's an older dog, he couldn't regulate his body temperature, and he was a Pomeranian, so he's fluffy. So many thoughts running through my mind. So I called the emergency room. I walked them through everything that happened. They were ready for him at the front door. Random pet emergency center, and we're there all of 5 minutes. They put us in a room, and the doctor comes in, wants to go over everything that happened. She said they can't get a body temperature on him, which is not good. And I said, well, also I was pouring cold water on his stomach thinking that he overheated, so I was trying to cool him down, so I was putting cold water on his stomach. I mean, I was grabbing ice cubes out of my Diet Coke. And they couldn't get a temperature on him, and they couldn't get a blood pressure on him, and that's not good either. His gums were pale. His gums were so white. So, and as she's asking me these questions, one of the nurses runs in and said he was crashing. And without even hesitation, me and the doctor, and I don't know, I guess it's from working in animal hospitals before. I don't know. Me and the doctor jump up and just run to the back, and I see this 8-pound dog. Not even. He's probably 7 pounds on a good day, and he's got 3 people on him doing chest compressions and you name it. When the doctor turns around to me and says, "You need to tell me right now what you want to do." And I mean, it's typical emergency room. It was crazy. It was a wild, wild west emergency room, and everyone's running. And I just said stop. within that what I forgot to mention, within that very short conversation of her telling me that they couldn't get blood pressure on him, couldn't get a body temperature on him, she said that there was a mass somewhere in his body that they think ruptured. So when we ran back there and they were trying to revive him, I knew in my head also that he had something that ruptured and he bleeding internally. And so she looked at me, she said, "You need to tell me right now what you want to do." And I said, "Stop. Everyone stop, let him go." It happened so fast. And I mean, even the staff felt bad because I had called them on the way there and told them we were traveling from New York. So, um, and so the doctor helped him along. She still gave him the euthanasia, but he faded. It was so fast. I mean, and I don't have kids. They were my kids. My whole business is built around them. I always I always thought that dog grooming was great for me because I uh I always wanted children, and so I really thought that I was like, this is great. I have a career that I can step away from and take care of my kids if I needed to, and then can get right back into it. And when kids didn't happen for me by the age of 30, that's when I started my business when I was either 30 or 31, and everything was about them. Everything was about them. And what's crazy is that I opened the business because of how much I love them and how much I wanted to provide a space for people to trust that they can leave their pets because I wasn't leaving my pets anywhere, and that's why I became a groomer. Um, but I lost time spent with them to be able to provide that for other people. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything about it. Um, but getting back to it, so he went so fast, and I realized now, like thinking about it, what happened was that I was pouring cold water on him. Something I think it was his spleen. I think it was his spleen erupted. He was bleeding internally, and when I was putting cold water on him in the car on the way there, thinking he overheated, I was slowing down the blood. I was slowing down his internal bleeding. So when I got him to emergency, and the first thing they do if they can't get a temperature on your pet is they put them on a heating pad, the internal bleeding picked right back up, and he just right away. Um, so they asked me if I wanted a coffin, which was very nice of them, and I said yes. And in my mind, I imagined like this ceremonial, like wooden child's coffin. I don't know what I was expecting, but they handed him to me in a cardboard box coffin, cardboard box coffin, and it was just silence. It was complete silence in the car driving from the emergency room to the Airbnb that we hadn't even checked into the Airbnb yet, and that was another 45-minute drive to the Airbnb. And I didn't have a thought in my mind. I didn't have a thought in my mind. I was just complete shock. But what I can say is that I didn't want to leave him at the emergency room because once again I knew that I had bought him a body bag too, because I'm thinking, right, my Pomeranian's also 13. At some point he's gonna go, and after just experiencing that with my Doberman, I was wanted to be prepared, I guess. But it was in New York, so now I have him in this coffin, and I didn't want to leave. I wasn't ready to say goodbye to him because I remember with my Doberman, I remember petting her for the last time, and I remember what she felt like. She felt like a little wet baby seal, like she was so smooth. And with my Pomeranian, everything happened so fast. I wasn't ready to not look at him. We drive to the Airbnb, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do as far as cremating him or not. I call around, and we drove another 45 minutes to a pet crematorium, and they were so kind. I missed the first half of the baby shower, but they were so kind. The crematorium was so kind, and they got him cremated. my 7-8 pound Pomeranian is in a box this big. It's tiniest little box. But I was with both of them. So fast forward, being able to really evaluate what had happened in my life and losing my dogs and how it changed me and the depression that I was going through and how disassociated and disconnected I was, um, is what led me to do the suicide awareness creative groom on my dog Ghost. I had the idea because as depressed and horrible as I felt in that time span of what I was going through, I couldn't imagine people going through something so horrible and feeling so alone that suicide was an option. And although people don't agree with creative grooming, right? Um, I didn't want this to just be about the creative groom and fun and look good. It was about sending a message within our industry, but also outside of our industry. It was about sending a message in a way that is my own way that I can touch other people's lives. So I don't know at what point I had the idea to do the suicide awareness groom, but I had to figure out how I was going to do it. And knowing that Allison was coming at the end of August, I had reached out to her and I said, "Hey, I plan on doing this. Is this something you're interested in that you'd want to do with me?" And I didn't know that she had her own experience, and it's not my story to tell, but I didn't know that she had her own experience in her life having to do with suicide, but she jumped all over it. She was actually really excited. And so I showed her my design that I had come up with. And on the one side of Ghost that I wound up doing, you can see I did the suicide awareness colors. And what I'm really realizing about my aesthetic is that I'm very straightforward and I like a clean aesthetic that is exactly, you see the message of what it is. On the other side of him, the design I had come up with was I wanted to reach people that deal with this in their career, which is firefighters, police, military. So that was the other side of Ghost. And when Allison saw the fire leg, she said, "I'm doing that side of him." She's like, "I'm doing that side of him." I said, "Okay." So when Allison came to visit, in that time frame of everything going on with my dogs too, I had also had a falling out with someone else in the industry, the grooming industry. So it was this did a lot for me. Not only the message that I wanted to give in doing the creative groom, but me and Allison getting to spend the day together and I getting to know her and her getting to know me. And we really became friends. That's why I love doing collabs with people because you get to know the person when you're working with them. Um, like, yes, I was getting to do something that I love and enjoy, but I was getting to hopefully touch people through that. And so we did the groom. We did the groom. It took us all day. We had a great time. And the next day, the day of the class, we came in early because I had my photographer come in and take some really great photos of Ghost. Not only the side that I did on him, but also the side that Allison did. Um, to get to touch other people's lives and hopefully help them in some way, shape, or form through something that I love to do. Um, it's a win-win. But what I find now looking back on it is that the creative grooms that get posted, what started this project is trying to bridge the gap between creative groomers and how much it means to them to get to spend time with their dog and doing a creative groom versus like people who don't understand the creative groom aspect of it, is that in posting that suicide awareness groom that we did, not once on my side of the dog where it was very clear and concise what it was, not one negative comment. Not one negative comment about creative grooming, which is flooring because if you feel so harshly that it's horrible for a dog to be colored and use creative grooming on, then you would still speak up about it, no matter what the cause was. But with the creative groom for suicide awareness, there was nothing negative said about it. So at that point, it, in my mind, established that it's not about the color. It's, what do we really have an issue with here? Is it the creative grooming, you thinking that the dog is standing all day, that the dog is being abused, or is it putting the color on the dog that you don't like? But on Allison's side of the project of the suicide awareness, where we represented firefighters, military, and police, and people didn't know that it was a suicide awareness dog, they had something negative to say. She's still, to this day, I'll still get comments or notifications that she had a comment on it saying how horrific it is. But on my side of the groom, where it's very obvious that it's a suicide awareness creative groom, no negative comments. Um, but that's where my idea for the suicide awareness creative groom came from. And there was one comment on there, I have to find it. There was one comment on there that when I saw the comment, come on, phone. When I saw the comment, I knew that if I had reached at least one person, it was worth it. And I'm trying to find it. I've called the 988, which is the suicide awareness hotline, several times. There's no shame in asking for help. Life is better with you in it. I reached one person. One person saw this, who at one point in their life needed help. And what's amazing to me is that this is someone in the grooming industry. And then when I looked into it, it's someone in the grooming industry who is a creative groomer themselves. And I look at their creative grooms and think that they're stunning. So if I could help one person through my suicide awareness dog, that's all that mattered. And I just hoped to spread that. The Beyond the Color project wasn't even a thought in my mind at that time. But what I can say is that not only did I hope to connect people through the suicide awareness room that I did, or me and Allison did, but I hope that going forward, I can connect more people to this project and what it stands for. People who already believe in it, creative grooms, and also maybe making other people aware of really what creative grooming is. But the whole concept is that we can disagree on things, we can have differing opinions on politics, money, you name it. But if you love dogs, that's what we can talk about, and that's what's going to connect us.